Be chefs in private sector restaurants. None of these people will lose their jobs if there's a crash out Brexit. They're permanent jobs in the public sector. They're sheltered. Do you not think it's very easy to support vital workers that can disrupt and bring the health service to a standstill? We've got to look at the bigger picture.
You're making the most ridiculous argument I've heard in a long time.
Well, someone's got to pay the 16 million.
Of course they do.
And it's going to be 1.7 million private sector workers.
And that has just challenged the Minister on why they don't pay the workers. They can cough up the money and find it no problem when it comes to an overspend on the Children's Hospital or the National Broadband Plan, or indeed on their own pensions and their own pay and their own remuneration. These workers have a deal with the government going right back to Lansdowne Road in 2015 that their jobs would be re-evaluated and they would be paid proportionately on that, and the government are breaking the deal. Now, when the teachers or anybody else go outside Lansdowne Road, I want to make this point, when the teachers or go outside Lansdowne Road deal, there's a penalty. They don't get their increments, they don't get their promotion. When the government go outside Lansdowne Road, where's the penalty? The penalty is being absorbed by the workers who had to go on picket lines this morning, and by the patients
in the strict sense of the PSSA, there is a scheduling.
The penalty is being absorbed by the workers who had to go on picket lines this morning, and by the patients
in the strict sense of the PSSA, there is a scheduling facilitated up to 2021.
Yeah, there's a schedule.
It doesn't say when it should be paid.
But it does say they should be paid, and they've waited already 4 years plus. And so the issue is, when are you going to pay us and how are you going to pay us? And what the government did this week is they offered them 1/16 of what they are due this year, and that is just not on. And Paschal Donohoe keeps saying, go back into the Labour Court, go back into the Labour Court. Actually, it's ironic. He has a Labour Court recommendation sitting on his lap in relation to CE supervisors, which he is saying means nothing. He's denying that the Labour Court recommendation means anything for the state when he has it on the one hand, and now he's saying go back into the Labour Court on the other. There should be penalties put on the government for breaking Lansdowne Road, never mind the tens of thousands of workers and the patients who have suffered as a consequence.
The government is accepting that we have to pay money. The issue, the outstanding, relates to the timing of those payments. So they will be paid. There's
That's
accepting
a really
of that.
cheapskate argument, isn't
it?
No,
it's not. We have to be conscious of the budgets, and there are knock-on effects to any budget increases, but we will be paying this money. The question arises, are we paying it all in 2019? Are we starting it in 2019 to complete it in 2020?
TDs and senators got pay increases in the lifetime of the Oireachtas.
Indeed, we have.
Certainly, ministers haven't, because we've forgone that, and we're not giving out, but we've forgone that, and that is the decision we made, and we did that.
The ironic thing is, if you did pay them, more than half of it would go back to the state in the form of PRSI and taxation, and the rest of it would be spent in the economy.
They will be paid, and we're committed.
Circulate against, because low-paid workers spend what they earn. They don't hug it off in offshore accounts that pay no tax on it.
Why the delay in pay?
They're on far less than they were when the crash happened. It was the public sector whose pay, pensions and conditions were hit. They're working longer hours, they're working hours for free.
They have a job for life. When you say they're working longer hours, they still work a fair amount of hours.
I listen to your diatribe. Now, you're going to have to listen to my logic. And what you're
I'm diatribing your logic, so you must be right.
Because what you're attempting to do is to drive a wedge between the public and private sector workers.
I just said,
and by the way, many of these public sector workers are married and live with people who are in the private sector.
Let her make the point.
Let her make the point. They don't fall out with each other on the basis you're public sector and I'm private sector. The fact that public sector workers have a right to an increase that was agreed with the government had given them two fingers, they're now pursuing it through taking strike actions that they do not want to take, does not give anybody a right to say that the private sector, God love them, are being held up against them. This is not about public sector versus private sector.
Could I put this to you? And again, affordable crash again?
Well then, if you weren't going to take an attitude that they deserve pay, why agree a deal with them back in 2015 and then renege on it in 2019? You have no right to do that. By the way, as I said earlier on, if another group of workers breaks the Lansdowne Road agreement, there's penalties there. They don't get their promotion. They don't get their increments. There's no penalties for Paschal Donohoe or the government for breaking their side of the bargain.
No, we've committed to.
Banks bankrupt the country, not the public sector.
Well, they added 40 billion to the national debt.
They're all right. They're making profits again. And by the way, all the developers who we bailed out are back. The public sector workers are left behind.
The point is this: why are you in favour of a military?
I'm in favour of soldiers being treated with respect. They
That
have
wasn't my
jobs that are
question.
employed
My
by the
question was,
state.
we are a neutral state and you will be the first on the protest, anti-American, anti-war and all this.
Come
And
here.
why do we need 9,000 people in defence? It doesn't snow that often.
As the independent who's often here, Michael Fitzmaurice would say to you, I live in the real world. If we could live in a world without an army where we'd have permanent peace and we didn't have Donald Trump threatening to annihilate us.
And do you think our army will save us from Donald Trump?
Camper. No, I'd be a very happy camper if we could live in the world that we'd be guaranteed. But there are soldiers employed by the state who are treated abysmally. Some of them sleeping in their cars because they cannot afford rent. Many of them living miles away from home because they can't travel back. Because
do you think we need an army?
We need to pay the soldiers properly. And the sailors, by the way, and anybody in the defence forces
reminds
who
me,
are being treated really abysmally.
Hold on a
There's many
second.
countries done that.
If it ended up losing the contract.
There's something really deeply rotten with this whole public procurement process, and I think the public should be aware that so far the process itself, i.e. the tendering out for contractors to tender out, has cost us 25 million, a fraction of what the workers who are on strike today are due, or twice as much as what it would cost to pay them, not the other way around actually. But there's something rotten with it, and if we cannot, as a state, take the cheaper bidder and break that public procurement process and say it's going to save us nearly 2 billion if we go with there, and get some guarantees over the fact that we don't want the people who are at the receiving end of it to be charged more than the rest of us are charged for the connection. If we can't do that, then what the hell is going on in this country? That a process of public procurement that costs us an arm and a leg, that has made a bags of what we've done in the Children's Hospital, it's now clearly failing us when it comes to broadband. Why can't we as a state say, sorry, we're now taking the cheaper bidder because it's costing us a third and we'll get guarantees for customer service?
Well, it's even
The Gardaí deal with you and others when you go on your protests?
Well, I think that there's, I agree with Liam that it's somewhere along the line there's a fundamental misunderstanding of the role that Gardaí should play. And a lot of them are trained to immediately think, I'm here to protect private property, not I'm here to enforce the law or to keep the peace. I'm here to protect private property. And I think that was best exemplified by the example of Take Back the City in North Frederick Street, where the Gardaí stood by and in fact enabled and protected a private security firm with balaclavas and masked faces play bully with protesters, students who were occupying the building. And their protest was quite legitimate. I don't think anybody in the country would say they hadn't got a legitimate cause, which was to highlight
Well, I don't know if everyone would agree with that. I mean,
well, probably it's that the Gardaí, a lot of individual Gardaí believe straight away, my job here is to protect private property.
It is
not to keep the peace, not to ensure that justice is seen to be done, but I need to protect private property, even if it is a derelict house in North Frederick
but hold
Street.
on a second.
And despite the fact that private security firms wearing balaclavas were heavy-handed towards our citizens, they saw their job as not keeping that apart, but protecting the building.
Okay.
And therefore, whatever the
we've
private
had that
security
point, Bríd. We've
firm
had that
did.
point.
But that's just an example.
Yeah,
There, yes.
I was number 2 complaint to GSOC. Gino Kenny was number 1. We had returned from Michel de Sea protest in Mayo, and it was filmed by RTE. The Gardaí literally picked Gino up and threw him over the bridge at Belnaboy, and he dropped about 20 feet into the river. And we went, when GSOC opened, we were the first in the queue. He was number 1 complaint, I was number 2 for getting beaten up. That wasn't upheld by GSOC.
Wasn't satisfactory.
No, they didn't uphold. They said there's no complaint to answer, despite RTE giving us footage of the event.
Can I thank all the panel for coming in? Met Éireann has issued